Good evening, everybody, and welcome to session 2 of Plastic Free Christmas, our webinar series to give you lots of tips and tricks on reducing festive waste. So this evening is a panel discussion, but to start off with, as people are joining, I thought we'd get the jokes out again. So panelists, I'd be very grateful if you could do some fake laughter. That would be extremely helpful. Okay, so how do sheep in Mexico say Merry Christmas?
Don't know.
Feliz Navidad.
Ha ha. My boys will really like that. I'll have to try and remember it.
It's a good one. Right. Another one here on another animal theme. What's green, covered in tinsel, and goes ribbit, ribbit? Anybody?
Don't know.
Mistletoe. Yeah.
These are terrible.
I know. It really is terrible. What did the beaver say to the Christmas tree? Nice gnawing you. We'll move on. What do you get if you cross a bell with a skunk? Jingle smells. That reminds me of that silly one that we used to sing about Batman smells. Jingle bells, Batman smells. Okay, oh, I like this one. How did Mary and Joseph know how much Jesus weighed when he was born?
Don't know.
Because away in a manger. I'm going to repeat one from last night, which I absolutely loved, and we did actually laugh at. So this is a knock knock one. Are you ready? Knock knock.
Who was that?
Hannah.
Anna who?
Hannah Partridge in a pear tree. Yay! That's my favourite Christmas joke. I told that. I was doing a session with a local church this morning, and the vicar laughed for a long time when I told that joke. He loved it. He absolutely loved it. Hi, Richard, if you're watching. I don't know if he is. He might catch up another time. Okay, then. So shall we do a few introductions? So I'll start with me. My name's Helen Miller, and I'm the community lead for Plastic Free Denholme. And Plastic Free Denholme is a community group which is part of a network of plastic-free communities all across the UK. And that network is coordinated by Surfers Against Sewage, who are a charity who initially started off, as the name suggests, trying to reduce sewage in the sea. And not long after that, they realised that plastic was actually a massive pollution problem also in the ocean. And so they began campaigns to try and reduce plastic, and this is part of that. So our project has been running for the last 18 months or so, and we've done too many things to mention in that time. But it's been fantastic to get to know lots and lots of different people as we've gone along that journey. And Christine, who is, I'm going to ask to introduce herself next, is one of those people that I've met along that journey. But I'm just going to say hi to Jenny, who's on the comments there. Hello, Jenny. Jenny's from Origin Fine Foods in Clayton. She's one of our business free champions. And Keith's my dad. So hi, Dad. But I'll hand over to Christine, who's got a slightly similar story to mine, but she'll tell you more.
So I'm from Plastic Free East Morton, and I actually joined Plastic Free Bingley a couple of years ago. So I'm also on the steering committee for Plastic Free Bingley. But I live in East Morton, which is not part of Bingley. So I thought, why not set up a group where I live as well? So do a lot of work like this with other groups, work closely with Riddlesden, who are right next door, trying to get rid of single-use plastic from where we live. Is that right?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. And then we've got Vick. Vick Jenkins.
My name's Vick Jenkins. I'm Councillor for Shipley Ward, and I'm also Bradford Council's Plastic Free Champion. And my role is, well, not plastic free, it's champion against single-use plastic, is to help oversee with council officers trying to reduce plastic use within the council. And a report went to the committee, to the Environment Committee, probably a year ago now, where one is they asked us to appoint people into these roles, and then work was started on about 10 or 12 recommendations, and some of the work has been continuing despite COVID on some of those. And I'll just let you know a couple of the ideas of the things that the council are doing. So one is elimination of using single-use plastic water bottles. So things like election counts, all the counters would be given them, they're no longer given them, and water stations are provided and people are asked to bring their own bottles. So that's a lot of plastic every year. They're looking at providing them in workplaces where there's a lot of people who would replace their use of single-use, water bottles. And one thing that I'm really keen on, and I know the public are, is parks is having water fountains. So it's something that's being looked at, but no promises yet so far. But that would be great, but it'd have to be only in parks where there was staff. So it could be monitored that it was being kept clean and safe to use. There's also a lot going on with contractor compliance, especially in parks and cafes and anyone where we give a contract to get them to reduce. Things like bin bags in parks are being discussed. I think they moved to recycled, and we're trying to discuss using none, but there's no promises there yet either. But these are the things that are being explored. Loads has been done on school meals, swapping out for less plastic, but also with an eye to move on to just reusable and sustainable, sort of travelling through that. But there has been an acknowledgement that with COVID, there has been an increase in PPE. So the winds are balanced out a bit at the moment. On a bigger scale, we're in groups where we can talk to other councils and procure together, and Bradford are leading the conversations about reducing single-use plastic. So there's loads going on. I mean, there's so much more going on, but yeah. It's all
there's some really inspiring work going on across lots of voluntary organisations across the district as well, which I think is really encouraging. We get to hear about that more and more. And one of the things that it's not on the topic of single-use plastic really, but the electric car charging points that have been put around the district, so they're just fantastic. And we have so many in the Bradford area. We're really, really lucky. And we have an electric vehicle, and I know Christine does as well. So it really helps us. Okay, over to Dan. So I'm going to set out my stall at the beginning. Dan and I are married to each other. So if the bickering starts, that's why. It's not because we're just being horrible to one another, but I'll let him introduce himself.
So I'm Dan, as Helen says, husband. Currently sat downstairs in the kitchen while she's up in the front room. She's got the fire on, I'm sat in the cold, so lots of sympathy. If I'm honest, and we were having this conversation a little while ago, got into the plastic-free thing purely on the back of Helen and Amelia's kind of process of starting this 18 months, 2 years ago. And it's one of those, as you start to learn more, you then start to realise what a problem it is, other than just the headlines on the news, which then kind of sparked your own thoughts. Work-wise, I work for a corporate bank, so they're starting to take a lot of steps along this as well, which is good in terms of what they're doing and steps they're doing for themselves, but also for the customers that we look after in terms of what's on their agenda for the environment, not just from a plastic-free angle, which is good. So I kind of sit in two camps in terms of the benefit of doing that. Locally, I run and manage the eco refill shop in Denholme when we're open, or when we're allowed to open. Manage all the stock and meet a lot of people in there, and a lot of people come back and I don't remember their faces, and that's just because I'm sorry, but that's quite good just to see people, and also talking to people about different things they're doing from different places as well. And we get people coming from outside the Bradford district coming here because they've heard about us and family, and then they'll talk to us about things that they're doing where they're from, which is quite good as well, just to hear the spread as it moves wider.
Fab. So I don't know how many people watching have managed to catch up or saw us last night when we were on live, but Christine and I did kind of a presentation of a session about things that we think are troublesome items of single-use plastic at Christmas. And one of the things that we did to start off with is we asked people to suggest items that they thought were a problem. And I'm just going to bring up, and we made a word cloud, didn't we? It was beautiful. And I'm just going to bring that up, share my screen now. It might be a little bit small if you're on a phone, and I apologise for that, but there we are. As that popped up,
Yeah.
great. So if you look at that, you can see the three main items, and it looks like some people have added things across the day as well, which is fantastic. But the words that are really large are the ones that more than one person or several people put in. So glitter, crackers and wrapping paper were the three things that people were most irritated by or felt were most problematic. Interesting. We also had things like decorations, disposable food packaging, cutlery, plates, bowls, advent calendar, bags, crisp packets, sticky tape, baubles, straws, ribbon, bows, all kinds of stuff. So it was fantastic that everyone was able to think of those things that bring them to mind. So we've got some talking points that we're going to discuss tonight, really based on this, but also based on the questions that people asked us last time. Right, should be coming back now. Am I back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see me. Yeah. Okay. So, and if you do want to ask questions, or Dan's put that comment in, if you do want to ask questions this evening, feel very welcome to do that. But we're going to begin with some of those questions that we had last evening. So the first one is, why is glitter so bad for the environment? And does all glitter have plastic in it? And Christine's going to talk to us about that because she spent the whole day researching this, I think.
Not quite, but why is it so bad? Well, it's they call it a ready-made microplastic because it's tiny already. Most microplastics are made of bigger plastics breaking down, but this is ready to go. And obviously as we all know from when we've used glitter, it goes everywhere. And that's not just at home. So I've read various articles about it, and apparently a study by the National Science Agency in Australia found that it's embedded in the sea floor, is in Arctic ice and whales' stomachs. So the main issue I have with it is that it's just for fun. You know, what we're aiming to do as our communities is to get rid of unnecessary single-use plastic. So as you said before, Vic, at the minute in the global pandemic, there is a lot of additional single-use plastics that we weren't using very much of this time last year, but they're necessary for health reasons. So that's necessary. So if we can get rid of the unnecessary stuff that we don't need, you know, we can use reusable face masks instead of single-use ones. We can use other things to decorate our world with than glitter, things that are reusable or that will actually break down. Does anyone else want? I don't want to just like.
I think we were talking about the glitter issue earlier on today, and you're right. It gets everywhere, so it gets all over your hands and all over your clothes. And then what do? You wash it off. So it goes down the plug. It goes down the drain. There is absolutely no way that glitter is going to get caught by the sewage system. It's just not, is it?
No,
So it always ends up in the sea eventually. And that's why those statistics that you've just mentioned there are really key, because it's ending up in the animals, in the sea creatures, and it's poisoning them.
Apparently it can end up in the sludge in the rivers as well, which can then sometimes be used like to fertilize crops, or it's the what they call the filter eaters, the fish that eat through like filtering things.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Filtered in. So I also read that somebody said, is it being made a scapegoat because it's only 1% of microplastics glitter? It's only 1%. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think
Is it being made a scapegoat?
I think 1% sounds small, but when you extrapolate that into amounts of glitter, probably quite a lot.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think it becomes relative to what do you get from it, as in even a plastic bottle has a purpose, or obviously we're not promoting plastic bottles, but it has a purpose of carrying a drink or of some description or a liquid, as opposed to glitter. It's shiny and it looks nice and kids play with it, and then it's all over the bit, and then it bungs up your hoover and it gets blown everywhere and all the rest of it. Doesn't actually add anything other than it's shiny. And there's other things you can do to add shine to your life if you want.
Avoidable and unnecessary.
If it disappeared tomorrow, we would just get on with life, wouldn't we? And that would be the end of it. And also, I just wanted to add the point that something that I've read says that like the eco glitter just behaves the same way in the environment as plastic. So, you know, it's not about swapping one for the other, it's just about giving it up.
Yeah, isn't there like two main types, but one of them, the eucalyptus based, is actually coated in plastic, and then the other one, it's the one they use at Lush and it's used in makeup, but it's still made from something synthetic, and they behave exactly, they have the same negative effect on the environments that they land in as traditional glitter.
Jenny's just put in the comments, sorry, she'd been Googling about edible glitter while listening. And frustratingly enough, we were talking about that earlier on, that because it's so small, it probably has exactly the same process in terms of it ends up in the water stream after you've eaten it. And because it's so small, it doesn't get caught by any filtration systems. It's still got plastic in it. It's coated, etc. It's just so small that it passes your own body's kind of filter, i.e. you don't choke on it. So it's probably an avoid if possible. And as Vic said, probably is possible, because if we didn't use glitter tomorrow forever, I'm not sure I'd feel that hard done by personally.
So there's often on things as well, like cards or wrapping paper that make something that you would otherwise have been able to recycle. You can no longer recycle it because it won't be accepted by the paper mills.
Actually, I don't know the answer to this myself, which is why I'm asking. So like my children are growing almost adults now, the old teenagers, and we still own some glitter from before. So the best way to dispose of that would just be sending it in its packaging to landfill.
There was a scheme that I read about last year, where somebody, I think based in somewhere like Cornwall, they were having sort of doing it as a glitter amnesty, and you could send it there, and then they sealed it in something and created jewellery like bangles, but it was within this like resin, so it was safe, and it still had a use and was made into something.
I think someone in Bingley does that actually.
Well, I think that's Delightful Divas. They were doing some, I don't think they're open at the minute because of the pandemic, but they were going to do sort of children's workshops, so they wasn't with resin, but it might have been sort of in reused tubes and things like that, to try and find a way of using it.
But you could always use it in craft in terms of jewellery. I remember last year there was a pop-up shop in Sunbridge Wells, and they had little necklaces that had been made, and it was a tiny little glass jar at the end, and it had glitter inside it, and there was a cork and then the string that went around the neck. And our little daughter bought one of those. You know, it's kind of got the shine off it, but it wasn't going to end up anywhere. Now, yes, eventually she'll get fed up with that piece of jewellery, but it'll probably go to a charity shop and somebody else will enjoy it. It's not going into landfill and the water course is probably the point. So things like that, you could reuse it rather than just going straight into landfill in that sort of, whether it's you or, you know, a craft shop or something like that might be able to use it in that sense as well.
There's a few comments coming in on this, both from people involved in the catering trade, actually. So Sheridan, who is, hi Sheridan, by the way, I'm glad you're on. Sheridan is from Emily's Eatery, which is another one of our plastic-free champions in Denholme, and she's amazing. We got a takeaway from her the other lunch. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, and it was fantastic. So do go there. It's on the main road, the Denholme Business Centre, and she's saying you can make edible glitter with sugar, and that's true. We were talking about this, the four of us earlier, before we went on the live. And it's absolutely true. You can make it shiny and glittery and make it look sparkly if you're decorating a cake or something by using sugar. It's perfect. And Jenny, again, who was also involved in catering, she doesn't use it, but she's saying it's relative to what she does. So it got her thinking. And she's mentioned, which is a really good point, you know, the reindeer food that people sell at this time of year, which is often a mixture of porridge and glitter.
Yeah.
Oh, please don't buy that. Please don't buy that with glitter in, because you're going to throw it outside. It's basically just chucking it onto the ground, as you know, littering, really. And it's not good for the birds, is it?
I think the school fair at East Morton last year, or the last few years, they've done it with all. I think they used sugar and like brown sugar and, you know, different, and it still looked sparkly, and none of the children said, oh, where's the glitter, you know. If you don't make it if you don't offer it, they're not going to miss it, are they?
So I think our overall message on the glitter is avoid it.
Can I just finish off by saying well done to Hallmark?
Oh, go on.
Hallmark, Marks and Spencer's, Morrison's, quite a few of the main stream, they're taking this sort of stuff off their cards, off their gift ranges. I was reading Hallmark's sustainability policy, very impressive actually. But yeah, lots of places making it easier to have glitter-free Christmases.
Fab. So the next question then, which I think we can definitely all chip in on, is where can I shop locally for Christmas it is, and buy eco-friendly products and or refills? So I think in terms of shopping locally, looking for local independent businesses, I'm a big fan of markets for food. I think they're great. And we have markets in the Bradford district. There's the Osler Market, which is in Bradford city centre. There is Shipley Market, which, what days is that, Vic? Is it Friday?
Fridays and Saturdays, but there's also a Monday as well. Yeah.
Bingley Farmers Market, which is, I think, once a month on a Saturday. Is that right? Got that right?
This weekend coming, I think.
Is it? Yeah, I thought it was.
First Saturday, yeah.
Yeah. Baildon has a farmers market, as does Saltaire, and Ilkley has a food market as well. Google them to find out when they're on. In the Calderdale area, because we do get people from that side, Halifax Borough Market is fantastic, one of the best markets I think there is. And then there are markets at Elland and Brighouse and Hebden Bridge and Todmorden as well. They're great places to get fresh food. Absolutely fantastic places to get fresh food. Plus, you might have in your local area a butcher or a fruit and veg greengrocer type shop. And they're also brilliant places to get your food from at Christmas. We're not against supermarkets, but if we can support local businesses, I think that's fab. And it's much easier to get things without plastic, I find, in those smaller type places. Although Morrison's is, I think, out of the supermarkets, one that's doing quite well in terms of the offer of being able to use your own containers for fish, meat, etc. And they are doing that now, I've double checked. So that's on the food stuff. Refill shops, does anybody want to chip in on that? Because there's a few in the Bradford district, I think.
We've got a few in Shipley, we've got Giddy Arts, and they were doing deliveries too. We've got Mr. Whetstone, which is also in Saltaire, and then we've got the delivery service of Shipley Refill.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? I think there's one in Skipton, which is a bit further out.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that because you'd have to cross the border.
Yeah, at some point in the future, people could potentially go there. In Halifax, there's one called Just Gaia in the Peace Hall, which is nice for a visit. I'm going to give a shout out to wonderful Rachel, who runs Wasted in Hebden Bridge. There's also one in Sorby Bridge as well. I've forgotten the name of, but that's another nice one.
There's Waste Not in
oh yeah,
Burley and They've got 2 now, and our village shop, the East Morton Community Shop, they have some refills as well there as well.
Yeah, and of course the Denholme shop, when we can reopen, we are hoping as soon as we can get access to the building, really, which is it's a library community building that we use. So that's good.
Not going to be before Christmas.
No, it won't be before Christmas. Don't confuse us before Christmas because we won't be there. Okay, so thinking about places where we can get maybe gifts or that kind of thing.
Just before you jump in there, Helen, Keith's just commented saying about just also when you are purchasing, just purchase what you need. So rather than going and buying, for example, 15 sausages when you're probably only going to eat 8 as a family or whatever it is, you just don't buy as many because you're going back next week or whenever, and it's just thinking and planning a bit more about your food and what you're actually buying and what you use.
Which is again easier at the markets or your local butcher, because you don't have to buy a pack of however many.
Yeah, exactly. So at the moment, there's a brilliant initiative that started back in the spring. The Bradford Street Market, it's an online market. It's on Facebook. It's a Facebook group, Bradford Street Market. Just give it a search. And it's every Thursday, isn't it? Have I got that right? Thursday, I think it is. And it's full of local makers, craftspeople. There are food items there, jewellery, clothes, hair accessories, all sorts of things. Very much of it is like sort of homemade type things that talented people in the Bradford district have made, and it's there available for people to buy. So I think that's a really good resource, especially at the moment where you may not feel quite so confident about trailing around a town centre perhaps, or going into a shop. So that's a good way of doing it. Has anyone else got any other suggestions on that?
On Plastic Free Bingley, I think it might have been 2 weeks ago, we did sort of a virtual plastic free Christmas fair, so lots of local makers that are already plastic free champions or on their way to it, all shared on there. So that's worth heading over to the Plastic Free Bingley page and scrolling back through those, because there's a lot of different businesses on there as well.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to go back to the food. A couple of sort of veg delivery schemes have developed locally. So there's Green Aura delivery. I think they'll deliver to all the areas that we're talking about. And is it Ridge and Furrow?
Yes.
Choose more what you want there, so you don't get a box that you can't control what you get. So those are 2 different types that have sprung up this year.
We use Fresh Farm deliveries, and they deliver across Calderdale and some parts of Bradford. So it's not all of Bradford, but it is sort of the Calderdale side of Bradford, and they're very good. So they do a standard box, but like Vick was saying about Ridge and Furrow, you can kind of pick and choose as well, and that's a nice one. And all the veg is grown in Preston, so it's really local, quite local as well, which is nice. They're a lovely supplier. Thinking about presents as well, we talked yesterday about second-hand and where you can get second-hand things. And again, markets can be quite good for that sometimes, flea markets or second-hand markets. Charity shops. Charity shops will be so glad of your custom this year when they've been closed for such a long time. And for Christmas last year, all of Dan's presents came from charity shops. And they were brilliant, weren't they, Dan? He loved them. We got a couple of shirts and a lot of books actually, and many of the books had not been read. They were brand new, and obviously the prices are very good if you are on a tight budget. But for me, it's not really about how much you spend. It's about the thought that goes into the gift that you give to the person. So there's some ideas there. Anything else anyone wants to chip in with on that one?
Yeah, I think I don't know if any of you have explored Facebook Marketplace.
I haven't really, but I'm interested in what you've got to say about it.
It's totally addictive. sort of like eBay, except you don't have to bid, you know what the price is, and you can just narrow it down. So you can just think, well, I'm not going to go out of ship. So, and you can just like search anything, and then it keeps feeding it to you. So like I was looking for Christmas lights, and you feel like you've seen everyone selling Christmas lights in the whole of Bradford, you know, and often in walking distance from you, if you know, you're too fussy. So yeah, it's just amazing. You can just get anything, Christmas jumpers, anything you want. Secondhand.
I think I've seen you do this, Vic, as well, where you can just shout out and say, Vic,
That's what I was going to say.
like, does anyone I know, is anyone I know selling this, whatever it is you're looking for? And a lot of the time there is somebody who has just exactly the item you're looking for and they want to get rid of it. So that's another one, you know, ask around kind of thing. Anything
quality, brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. So you just mentioned Christmas lights there. So I wonder if it's a good time to move on to that next question there. So we had the question.
Just before you
go on,
Helen, just on the shopping, it's not so much second hand, but Etsy online, ETSY.
Oh yeah,
is a good site. It's very much independent, but it's like an online marketplace for the UK. And a lot of them are, you can filter it down. So not all of them, but a lot of them are eco-friendly products, handmade. It's not local to us, but the idea is the small independents. Some of them made from home and that sort of stuff. So a lot of it's, you know, reclaimed or upcycled products as well. So that's worth a look, particularly if you're not feeling overly comfortable wandering around the centre of a town centre at the minute, or a shopping centre type place.
So talk about the lights now. Is that all right? Yeah. Thank you. So the question, no, it's all right. The question is, what can I do with broken Christmas lights? Where could I get them repaired or recycled? So I know Dan and Vic have got some advice for us on this. I'm clueless about this kind of thing, so I'm going to zip now.
So yeah, so really there's probably two angles on this. One is it depends what type of lights they are. If they're what I would say probably the old style lights that the bulbs can screw in and out, you can quite easily pick up spare bulbs very often from hardware shops, or you know, even Wilco's or B&Q's, but your local hardware shop will probably have some kicking around. The place that you go when you want 5 screws to finish putting that shelf up type thing. Failing that, eBay, you can probably get them. And very often the issue with those ones is it's just the bulb that's blown. So it's a bulb that needs replacing rather than a full set of lights or 5 or 6 bulbs. If it's the newer LED lights, you can't actually replace the bulbs, and that becomes obviously a bit of an issue. But don't put them in your green recycling bin. There are a few places around which I'll let Vic go on to because she knows more about this than I do. But at worst, take them to your local council recycling and put them in the electrical recycling, because at worst they can strip out the wire from them and send that bit for recycling. Obviously they're more energy efficient, so it's better if you are replacing lights to buy those, ideally secondhand if you can. But from a getting rid of them, don't just chuck them in your green recycling once they're done after however many hours they've been on. They can have some recycled good out of them.
It is a real shame because it feels like just a fairy lights thing. Like that's in my adult lifetime. I've gone from something that you're expected to fix yourself to now they become obsolete if you can't use them. And I think like if you even took them to someone who can fix them, it would cost more to fix them than it would cost to new. But at the Kirkgate Centre, which is where I work in my day job, we have had a repair cafe, but it was only now and again, and it obviously isn't happening at the moment. And that model, and I think it's kind of a great model for people to maybe repeat in other places, but it'll take a bit of work, but not that much, is you know, just think of all the retired people who've worked in like electrical engineering, that kind of thing. It's getting them together, you know, they're so practical and so knowledgeable. But I've got to say that one thing that they did find time and time again is people bring in broken stuff and you're expected to sit there with the person fixing it. You don't just dump it and walk off and they fix it. If they're going to look at it for you, and if it needs a new part, they're going to tell you to go and order that and bring it back to the next one, and then they'll do it for you. So you've got to really engage in the process. It's not just, here's all my broken rubbish, you sort it out. It's very much a two-way process. But overwhelmingly, it was the fuse or a light bulb, you know, so all these electrical items that people could have just changed the fuse in the plug. So, you know, explore all those things first, but also, you know, for communities is consider setting up these things, because there's so many things you can fix. And now with the internet, you can buy the parts yourself and you can watch tutorials. I mean, obviously electrical stuff, you do need to know what you're doing a bit, but yeah, there are those avenues to explore.
Okay, so that's some useful information there. I think, you know, fixing things, it has become a lost art, hasn't it? My mum will often talk about my grandfather, who's sadly no longer with us, but he would fix everything, and they had things that were, you know, 40 years old in the house. In fact, I've got a flask that used to belong to my grandparents, and it's older than I am, and it's still in pristine condition because, first of all, they looked after it. It was taken, you know, good care was taken of it, but also he would fix everything. A toaster broke, he'd fix it. And it is a bit of a lost art, but also some of these products are sort of engineered to become obsolete as well, which is something of an issue. I saw something on Twitter about that today. Somebody who'd got a washing machine that they'd specifically bought for its energy efficiency. Something had gone wrong with it and it couldn't be repaired because what had gone wrong with it was encased. So, you know, there's issues there. But that was all about fairy lights, Christmas lights, and where we could get them repaired or recycling. So also on recycling, is there anywhere, this is the question, is there anywhere we can take things that can't go in curbside recycling? Okay, now, before we get on to that, I just want to do another screen share of something else that we looked at last night, which is the waste hierarchy. So hopefully you can see this. There we go. So you start at the bottom here. And if you look up, recycle is really quite near the top. So before we think about recycling things, I just want to make the point, it is much, much better to consider all these other options before you get to that point. And one of them actually is repair, isn't it? However, there are some things that can't be easily recycled and can't be easily avoided. So we're going to have a bit of a discussion about that now. We might want to start with some of the things, or how people can find out what they can actually recycle in their curbside. So I don't know if Vic, do you want to start with that?
Well, I think an easy Google on recycle for Bradford district can help you find that. But we also do get provided with stickers to stick on our bin every year, which are invaluable, really. And you can look at that every time you go to your bin and check it if you remember to stick it on. And when I look out in the street, most bins, people have stuck them on their bins. So, and I also think, like, Bradford are quite good at some of these things, but they're not as good at shouting about, because I followed Leeds page, and when they were saying they were thinking of doing these stickers, I was thinking, well, we've been doing that forever, you know. So it isn't hard to find out, but I think people do just think plastic just means any plastic, and I think generally it means food packaging plastic.
There are specific lists, as Vic says, on the website, and, you know, always handy to have a check on there, because sometimes things do change. But Bradford Council are actually, certainly second the sentiment that they are really good with recycling. We had a question on a webinar we did. I'll bring my face back now. There we are. On a webinar we did a couple of weeks ago, there was some skepticism about actually where the recycling was being taken, and they do have some excellent information on the website about how the process works. So if you are interested in rubbish, sounds an unusual thing to say, but where it goes and what happens to it in the process, there's even some YouTube videos on there.
There's a video of the yeah. Jane and I we signed up to be the recycle champion, so we get extra stickers for our bins.
Oh, how exciting!
That say "Ask me," so then, I have to know what's on the sticker. But we got to go to the recycling place at Bowlingback Lane and see it in action and how it all works. But I think if you're in doubt, a lot of people are like, no, yeah, I'll chuck it in, it'll be fine. If you're in doubt, don't. You know, if it's not on the list, don't put it in there, because they can't put absolutely everything in the world on the list. They know, you know, for definite the stuff on the list can be recycled, because it has to be sorted first by the council and then it's sent off to the right places. The amount of energy, transportation, the carbon footprint of recycling, you know, just go back to the bottom of the triangle and refuse, don't buy it. If it's in something that if it's wrapped in something that you cannot put in your curbside recycling, do you need it? You know.
That said, though, there are the TerraCycle collection points. I'm not going to list off a whole list of where things are, although I know Jenny at Origin Fine Foods in Clayton has one for baby food pouches. But it's only for baby food pouches, so don't put like cat food pouches or anything in there. The TerraCycle collection schemes are a really good idea for hard to recycle items. If you are interested in finding out where the schemes are, go to the TerraCycle website and investigate that further. However, because of COVID, I do know that a lot of the schemes have either temporarily stopped or are not planning on starting back up again. So you may find that you arrive at the destination and there's nothing there. So it might be a little bit hit and miss for a while. But our big message is, if you can avoid it in the first place, please, 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 don't buy it.
If you're making an extra journey, if you're going to drive somewhere specifically to put your rubbish in a bin that's going to then somebody else is going to have to drive there, take it out and transport this to the place that's going to recycle it. How is that going to work out overall in terms of the environment and your footprint? You just need to think about that. If it's somewhere you're going anyway, that's fine, but if it's an extra journey to the other side of town, it's probably, you shouldn't, don't buy it.
There are other recycling things going on at the council tips as well. So some of the stuff that can't be collected curbside. So we mentioned earlier about electrical items. They will do recycling of those items as well. So it's always worth, again, look on the council website. It's a great resource for that, and find out what items can be accepted there, and go to your local site or one of the other sites in the district, especially after Christmas when you might have more rubbish than normal. Anything else on that one?
Well, the other one is the stretchy plastic bags. So the bags that you might buy a loaf of bread in from the supermarket. Most supermarkets, I know for definite, Morrison's at Keighley and Illingworth, and that's only because they're the two that we frequent the most, do have by the entrance where you can put, I think it's usually advertised as carry a bag recycling. But any plastic base, if you can stretch it and it moves, it can go in there. So even cling film, if it's not too covered in grease and oil or whatever you've used it for, then that can go in as well. So any bags like that, and including some of the, if you're ordering stuff online, sometimes you'll get it in a bag that's stretchy elastic. Now the ideal is if you can use that potentially even to wrap somebody else's present in. There's a genius brainstorm idea. But
were you watching
then
last
recycle
night?
It. So I've wrapped all Helen's presents in.
And he did that whilst he was watching last night as well. Vic, did you have anything to add?
I was just going to have a downer on TerraCycle. So I was just thinking that those things that you TerraCycle are usually really hard to recycle things, and it is usually often a bit of greenwashing by the company that is the most guilty of producing it. So, you know, like with baby food pouches, I know I don't have a baby at the moment, and they didn't exist as much when my kids were around. But, you know, if you can use glass jars or avoid them if possible. Same with cat food, pet pouches. And even like, I know, I started collecting crisp packets at the centre, and just knowing it was a drop in the ocean and feeling like we were drowning in crisp packets, it's actually...
People eat so many crisps.
It stopped me.
It's really depressing.
Myself.
It's adding to the obesity crisis as well. I think, you know, if we can eat fewer crisps, we have popcorn, you know, buy the little kernels of popcorn and make popcorn. That's a nice solution, so that you know, you're eating fewer. Cut down. If you can't cut it out, cut it down, I think.
We've switched to, instead of buying a multi-pack, we buy like a big pack and then we portion it out. So we're still buying crisp packets, but it's one instead of 6 mini and a big. So there are things you can do. Yeah,
that's true. So the next question is quite specific. So last evening we were there was some discussion on the comments about Vegware. For those of you that don't know, Vegware is a producer, a company that makes compostable, disposable food packaging. So things like coffee cups, sandwich wrappers, all sorts of stuff. And one of the questions that somebody wanted to know is it available to buy to the general public? But I wanted us to have a bit of a wider discussion about the idea of compostable packaging, and in particular for takeaways, because especially at the moment we're in tier 3, aren't we? And so many of our fantastic local food businesses can only do takeaway. And some of them are trying really hard to be eco-friendly and do the right thing and be ethical. And one of the options open to them is Vegware or similar products. And I think in that setting, I think what they're doing is they're trying to do the right thing. However, it's problematic because these items are only compostable under industrial conditions. So what that means is it needs to be collected professionally by a proper company that sort it all out. It's not, you can't throw that coffee cup into your compost at home, and if you litter it, it will not break down. So the idea of something being compostable is not as simple as we perhaps think. And I worry that some of these really fantastic businesses, and I think of one, actually, a guy that I was talking to fairly recently, he was telling me about the compostable packaging and was really excited. And when I then shared that news with him, he felt he'd been missold because he didn't know that. So reuse is always better. Reuse and refill is always better. But at the moment, when all we can do is take away, I can see and understand why businesses are wanting to use the compostable packaging rather than the plastic-based packaging. What do other people think about that?
So yeah, for me, I mean, if it's as a business, it's like you say. I think if it's for example, thinking to the summer when we might be able to have things like village galas and such like, you might have, and if that's for example in a park, if you've got a kitchen facility there, then why isn't somebody washing them up and you're using good old cups and glasses? You know, and that's perfectly acceptable. We all drink out of them at home. I'm not sure why we wouldn't in a park or something like that. If there aren't washing up facilities there, is it possible to arrange it where they can be taken to the local community hall or whatever? Failing that, if it's something like, well, it's a tent and they're selling pre-prepared sandwiches and doing coffees from an urn, well, yes, you could, and the better way to use that type of compostable cup would be to have a specific bin to collect those, where you've then arranged that somebody's going to then take that bin or those 3 bins at worth away and deal with them, so it's not mixed up with all the other stuff. But that can be a little bit like Vick was saying about the TerraCycle, in terms of it can just be a little bit of an issue to sort through, and people only put that in there and they'll put other stuff in and everything else. It can get contaminated quite easily. So I don't think it's the wonder solution that potentially we accidentally fall into the trap of feeling it is by the word compostable, because it's not what we immediately assume it is, personally.
Do you think the foil trays are a good option, given that sort of material is like infinitely recycled, having just poo-pooed recycling? Of all the things that you are available to recycle, foil, tin, aluminium, that can be recycled forever and ever and ever without losing quality, can't it? And at home in your own recycling bin. So, and I bet it's actually cheaper for these businesses as well, you know, to use those. And then if you're taking away, obviously the best option is the reuse, as you're saying, bring your own. But failing that, something like this, which you can quickly dunk in your washing up water at the end, like you do with your tins, and put it in your own recycling. Maybe that's the next best.
So I think when the question came up, it was somebody wanting to know if these compostable items could be bought by members of the public, and the answer is, I've checked it, yes you can, but they sell them in quite large quantities. So it's a crate of 500, for instance, which, if that's for your own personal use for a party, say at home, or an event that it might be too much. I'm just noticing Jenny's just put, and I know Jenny uses vegware in her deli, and we know why you do it, Jenny, we get it. But also they have a mug library there, so they have loads of mugs that people can take away and bring back again. And that's a great idea. But a lot of this is about switching our thinking to single use across the board, not just plastic single use, but any kind of disposable item. Reusing something is always going to be better. So lots of options. If you're having a gathering at home and you don't think you're going to have enough plates, ask your guests to bring plates with them. We all have enough plates for ourselves. So, and the same with cutlery and other dinnerware items that you might need. Also explore whether you can hire items. So supermarkets often will hire out wine glasses and things like that. We also have a party pack, kids party wear, that we hire out for a nominal fee, and actually Christine's used it, and we give the half of the fee to your child's primary school as well. So it's a little bit of fundraising for your school. We don't make any money out of it, it's just something.
The best thing about that was at the end, just putting it all in the box and not even having to wash it up, because you washed it up. Thank you very much. So
so you know, when we have a post-COVID and we're all having parties again, those are the options to go for, I think, in terms of wanting to have large numbers of crockery items. I think the idea of asking people to bring their own is a really good one.
Is there a curry place in Shipley that does that?
A party pack.
A curry place that does
the Crafty Indian, is it called? Yeah. So you can bring your own box and they'll put a curry in it. Yeah, your own container. I think they sell them, don't they? It's the tiffin boxes.
Yeah.
But other takeaways would probably be quite open to that if you want to take your own container and go away with your curry in your own box or whatever, fish and chips or something.
They're a lovely item, actually. Maybe that's something people could buy each other for Christmas.
Nice idea.
Well, often we're scratching around. It just seems a bit crazy, like trying to think of things to buy for each other. So that might be a really nice gift if you live locally and to get your curry in that.
Good. So the message on the compostable packaging is, we understand there are reasons why you might need to use disposable packaging, but if you can, it's always better to have something that can be refilled and reused. And as customers go into these kinds of places, that's our responsibility to make sure that we've remembered to take our own stuff with us. And if you're at home, consider rather than disposable items, consider hiring them or asking people to bring them from home. Those are better alternatives, we think. So we come to the last question on this list, but I know there is at least one question in the comments, which I will come to. So this one kind of came up on Facebook today, didn't it, Christine? So thinking about selection boxes, what alternatives are there to the children's chocolate selection boxes? Because they have an awful lot of plastic. It's wrapped in a plastic wrapper. Each chocolate bar is wrapped in an individual plastic wrapper, and then it's all on a plastic tray, isn't it? So there was actually more plastic than chocolate, we thought, in a selection box. So I'm going to throw that one open.
The amount of chocolate was so measly in the end. Very sad.
So what ideas have we got then for different things that we could do instead of
buying? Did you still eat the chocolate, Christine? After that experiment?
It wasn't my picture. However, I had my car cleaned this week, and the guy that did it, he put a selection box in the middle, and I was like, oh, thanks. And when I opened it, I was like, gosh, this is a lot of plastic, and they're all like the miniature chocolate things, and it was gone in. Not just I shared it, but it was gone in 2 seconds. The chocolate, not the plastic.
So we had a little idea that we talked about yesterday, which was maybe reusing an old jam jar and filling it with sweets or chocolate buttons or something like that. And I think that's a lovely one, especially at Christmas, because you can tie a lovely ribbon around it or decorate the jar in some way, you know, in a Christmassy way, but not with glitter, obviously. And that's a nice one, I think, that you could use. But has anyone got any other suggestions? Because there are lots of things that you can get without plastic, aren't there?
A few people commented on mine, and one of my friends who used to live in Germany a very long time ago, apparently, she said that it was a German tradition to put Santa's boots out on Christmas Eve, and it's like they sort of look like a pair of socks, really, but Santa's boots, and then they get filled with chocolates and sweet treats rather than a selection box. And if you do something like that, or the jam jar, then you can actually pick chocolate that's not wrapped in plastic and that's more ethically made, like fair
and that everybody likes, because there's always one chocolate in the selection box that nobody wants to eat.
Yeah,
The fudge usually, I think so.
Bounty.
Do they do them in selection boxes? I don't know.
Well, from the netting, the chocolate coins are always good, aren't they?
Yeah, and you can get different shapes and stuff as well. It's not just chocolate coins. They do sort of Santas and penguins and stuff like that. But there are lots of ethical chocolate brands out there as well, which can be really good. A particular one I'm thinking of is Tony's Chocolonely, which is an anti-slavery brand, and it comes with no plastic, so it's wrapped in foil with a paper wrapper around it, and it's really, really nice, and really it's ethically produced, fair trade. It ticks all the boxes, so that's a nice one.
Special Christmas ones as well.
Yeah, gingerbread. I mean, you can just tie a nice bow around it, can't you, and make it look festive.
Well, it's gorgeous anyway.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's wrapped already.
So if you're really missing your selection box, and you know, there's some ideas there for other things that you could do. And the question on the comments was about Christmas crackers, which I'm really pleased that that's come up, because we sort of didn't touch too much on that last night, but it was one of the main points that people raised on the word cloud. So how can you make your own Christmas crackers? And the person said, not like the Good Life. And I know why he's saying that, because it's my dad that's asked the question, and I was a big fan of the Good Life as a child, and I had VHS.
What do you mean was?
Still am. With the entire series on, and one of their Christmas episode, they made Christmas crackers with wrapped in like newspaper. So that's why he's saying he doesn't want it to look like newspaper. But making your own Christmas crackers is a fab idea. Old toilet roll, some brown paper, or some wrapping paper left over from last year, maybe. We did a little competition on the Facebook page last year, didn't we, with make your own Christmas crackers, and there were some lovely ones. You can buy the snaps. I got mine last year from Scraptastic in Shipley. I imagine they're probably selling them again, and you could just buy as many as you needed, so you didn't need to buy a whole pack full. It was really handy. I think they were only about a few pence each, so I just bought 6 of them. Things to put inside them, though. What ideas have we got about non-plastic things to put inside?
Well, last year I went very good lifey and put all natural things inside mine. So like a tiny bunch of lavender stolen from my neighbour's hedge and a teeny tiny bird feeder, which was just a pine cone with flattened seeds on. And I actually can't remember the others. I was trying to remember them. So just all like teeny weeny things like that, but also jokes. You're already there.
Well, exactly. If you go to the start of this, on the playback, if you go right to the start, you're sorted. You've got all your Christmas jokes. You can just write them down because we tell loads of fantastic jokes.
Also, matchstick puzzle. So I just printed off some matchstick puzzles and gave everyone matchsticks the right number and put a little elastic band on as well. So
when I did mine last year, I used sweets from Pick and Mix, and I just wrapped them up in a little bit of paper. So that was a good one. I made paper hats. I did make them out of old newspaper. And there is a photograph, actually, I think, of Dan and I with the newspaper hats on from last year. I know I stumbled across it the other day. He's like, no, don't put that. Don't worry. I haven't got it on the screen. No, I know. But you can make your own paper hats out of, you know, any bits of paper. Or you could consider reusable ones. There are those that are available out there that are made of fabric, and you can use them again and again. And there are reusable crackers as well that I've seen that people make. So that's another idea. You can buy
the other thing is
free ones, so.
Yeah, you can buy plastic. You said there's loads available now, like on the high street. The other thing is, like, why do we do crackers at Christmas? How attached are you to it? And if you want a silly hat, I'm sure you've got one.
Yeah, well.
And I mean, I had a little look for things because I'm rubbish at making stuff, to be honest. Much as I wish I was not, but so I've tried to make crackers and they were just rubbish. So I have seen a thing of everybody just had like a little envelope, and one was they had little pictures in of different things like a Christmas tradition, or do you remember that Christmas when? And it was like conversations that's kind of a bit more like favours at a wedding, basically. You know, or like somebody you want to remember. So like, oh, remember Auntie, whoever. You know, that you will talk about around your table, and you could have your favours. They don't necessarily have to be in a cracker, just because that's what we've always done. Doesn't mean that's what we've always got to do. You know, we've always had glitter, not always, but you know, we don't always have to have it. We don't have to have crackers.
I think that's true, and I think that's the point. Probably a good point to kind of round off on, isn't it? That maybe it's time for us to start thinking about what actually do we want to carry forward? What are the important things to us? And, you know, for some, it's going to be different for everybody, isn't it? But Christmas this year is going to be different. And that is an opportunity for us to really, really think hard about what do we want to carry forward, and what do we want to, the parts that we want to continue with. And maybe some of it actually is stuff that we want to leave behind and not consider. And I think when we're thinking about environmental issues, it's just so key, isn't it? Like Vick, right at the beginning, you made the point about glitter. If it disappeared from our lives, we'd carry on. You know, we'd all survive, wouldn't we? So I think that's a nice place to end, and to say thank you to Christine, to Vick, and to Dan for coming on the panel and giving us their super ideas. And thank you to everyone who's watched. And I know some people will dip in and dip out, and other people will catch up. So this will be on our Facebook page forever. And I'll also hopefully edit it and get it on YouTube. If you haven't had a chance to watch last night's presentation, that's a good shout. Do have a look at it, because I tell more jokes as well. So it's worth it just for that, probably.
Thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure. And we wish everybody a happy Christmas, don't we?
Yes,
happy Christmas, and stay safe. And we'll see you all again in the new year.